lights down. Hand over my crown, hand over my heart. I do this for my town, I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time. None of you people can tell me to stop.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this first episode of 2021 of MGR Unplugged. The truth is that we have so much stuff that is happening the first 5-6 days of the year that is incredible, including all the stuff that happened yesterday. But I'm looking at Bitcoin, and it just now it passed 40,000.
Oh, did it really?
Just now.
Wow.
$40,044
Hold on, I gotta look for myself.
For one Bitcoin. David is super excited. He's being a Bitcoin believer.
We were talking yesterday about you had to do something with your IRA. You said, when are you going to make your own IRA? I said, I have a BRA. Okay, I have a Bitcoin retirement account. That's my retirement account.
my individual Bitcoin account, IBA. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, well, with all the chaos that happened, the markets keep going up.
I know.
It's like nobody cares.
I don't understand anything.
The Fed will print its way through a civil war. It doesn't matter.
I don't understand what's happening, because everything that we were expecting to work rationally, like basically, 4 years ago when Trump was elected, people say, oh, this is great for the market, all that stuff, tax rates for the corporations going down, all the stock market went up because they said, okay, lower tax rates means more productivity, we're going to hire more people, blah, 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 all that stuff. Today, we're basically in the 180-degree opposite of what happened 4 years ago. And yesterday, you and I were looking at the market, which was chaotic. I mean, the Georgia elections turned out to be 2 more senators for the Democrats, which now basically...
Is it official?
It's official, yeah. Okay. So basically, they won the 2 seats that were pending in the runoffs. And now, basically, the Senate is 50-50, which means that with Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker is basically Democrat. So the complete House is now Democrat.
The complete Congress,
House and Senate, correct. Yeah. Well, the House lost a few seats, but still is Democrat, and the Senate now is basically Democrat too. So they can increase the Congress. But the thing is that the market yesterday, even when the riots in Capitol Hill and all that stuff started, was up on a record high. It went as high as 600 points. It was almost like 2% high. And it was like, what is going on? And then it went down a little bit to still 400 or something up. It was up $1.25%, basically both S&P and even the Russell, which is the small business, index. And so then people were saying, well, it doesn't matter if Biden won the elections or whatever, because the Senate still might be...
Well, the argument for the Senate thing was that the big question is what they'll do with capital gains tax.
Yeah.
That if
not only that, corporate taxes, everything else.
Yeah, corporate taxes. The for the market, it's the corporate tax and the capital gains tax. If they will basically increase them. Right now, capital gains is, depending on how much you make, 15 to 20%. And there was rumors that they were just going to make it the same as income taxes, so you could pay like 35%.
Yeah, whatever your
capital
bracket
gains.
Is. Yeah.
Which obviously that's a big difference. And then the corporate tax, obviously Trump lowered it to 21. They were saying they might take it back to 28. I don't know. We'll see. But so that's the thing, the negative side, as far as if you're looking at what the markets would respond, that would be the negative side. But the positive side is, if it looks like now it's all blue across the executive and legislative, that means that they're probably going to pass through more stimulus. And they were talking about the $2,000 checks and all of that, which is pro the market. I mean, listen, if you're just going to have a government that says, we don't care about inflation, we're just going to jack it up, then asset prices are going to rise. I mean, it doesn't matter.
But the thing...
Who cares about, 7% more in taxes? First of all, corporations have all their ways of getting around corporate taxes. But second of all, who cares about a little more in taxes when the asset inflation is going to go up another 20% this year?
Right. But the main thing, or one of the things that I see is that back in November, during the actual elections, Georgia, which is the only state that has these kind of runoffs, both senators won. Both Republican senators have won. The only difference is that they didn't win by enough margin. So by Georgia rules, when you don't win by enough margin, then you have this runoff to confirm it. Basically like a recount, but it's a real recount where you ask people to vote again. But in November, both of those Republican senators were leading by a very small margin, but they won the seat. Now in the runoffs, 2 months later, they lost. So in 2 months, Georgia, who's never lost, basically never had like Democratic senators, now they have 2. They won both.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona, same thing.
Yeah,
Arizona has 2 Democratic senators
right
now.
Right.
We've been a red state for a long time.
But that's the way it was the election. But like I said, in Georgia, it was the original result was 2 Republicans. The later runoff result is 2 Democrats. So in 2 months, in 60 days, people changed their mind. And one of the things that I believe changed their minds is the fact that if you go back a little bit and you say, okay, well, Trump finally, Congress passed the latest stimulus package, which meant $600 for individuals and a bunch of other things, obviously, that we are not going to discuss now. But then Trump said, oh, that's too little. I'm going to veto that thing. It needs to be at least $2,000. Okay, well, that's, that kind of put everything on the side of the Democrats, because Nancy Pelosi, who's a very smart woman, said, oh, yeah, perfect. We never agree with Trump, but in this case, we agree. Well, they're going to pass another vote to approve the $2,000. Then it put all the Republicans on a bind, because all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, we just spent like 3-4 months negotiating the stimulus package. We finally passed $600. And now our president says it should be 2,000. Now the Democrats are saying, yes, it should be 2,000. We were trying to get 2,000. Now we're going to pass this thing. Then obviously the Senate said, no, there's no way. We're going to keep it as it is. So basically, my feeling is that the voters in Georgia were saying, okay, well, if we vote Republican, we're going to be $600 getting in the mail. If we vote Democrat, Senate is going to pass a $2,000 stimulus. So basically, they were buying indirectly. They were bribing people. They were buying votes, basically. I mean, seriously. I mean, if you are a Georgia voter and you say, if I vote Democrat now, I'm going to get basically Congress and this. Basically the Senate and the House to pass the $2,000 stimulus package, which they were trying to, but then the Senate currently Republican didn't pass. Now I'm going to get $2,000 in the mail. That's what they did. 2 months later, that's what they did. So Trump didn't help him in this case. Where he threw that bullet that he knew it wasn't going to pass, and then he put the whole thing into the Democrats to say, yeah, we want to do that, and the Senate is not approving it. Okay, well, we have 2 senators that are in limbo. Okay, we're going to make it Democrats now. So, I mean, all that stuff is kind of crazy, but the irrationality of the market, if that's what you want to define it, is being crazy. Because if I was an investing advisor, I mean, at this point, I'll tell my clients, just gotta buy and hold, whatever. I have no fucking clue what to tell you. I mean, the market indicators are not responding to...
No, I mean, listen, the thing I've learned most the last 2 years investing is just... I really had to give up. There's what you think is right and what you want to be right. And what I mean by that, I don't mean like morally. I mean just as in, just look at like the valuations of I mean, Tesla today is now worth over $800 billion now. I mean, listen, I love Tesla's cars and all of that. That's great. They're valued at $1.5 million per car sold. I mean, it's just...
Yeah,
completely
I think
irrational.
Yeah, I think in that case it has to do with Tesla being
or another company that we love and we work with constantly, Shopify.
Mm-hmm.
Shopify is a great company. Toby Lucky's a brilliant CEO, but are they worth like what 200-300 billion now? I don't know, man.
No, I know.
I mean, it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, the price to earnings ratio, if you will, the P is exaggerated.
But my point is, I have learned to. It's like the famous. What's the name of the Doctor Strangelove? how I learned to
drop the bomb on
how I learned to stop worrying and love the bomb or something.
Yeah.
Basically, what I've done over the last 2 years is I'm become Dr. Strangelove. I have learned to stop worrying and just love the Fed, basically.
Yeah, well, that's what everybody's doing.
Because I mean, I still think the long-term ramifications are going to be quite dire if you just have mega massive inflation. But at the same time, I had to stop basically saying, you know what? I know this is irrational. I know this isn't right. I know this isn't sustainable. But I also know that for basically last year 2020 and I think this year 2021, things will remain irrational. And I'm going to ride that wave, baby.
Right.
And that's basically what I'm doing. And this is not investment advice. This is incredibly risky.
No, but if it's not advice, it's just
unsustainable. But you know what? It works.
But if you love the Fed now, you're going to love it even more in the coming months when you have Janet Yellen joining as becoming the Secretary of the Treasury. And then she's a former Fed herself. She was a very dovish Fed. And basically you're going to have a Fed plus a former Fed working together.
Plus all Democrat
and an all Democrat
federal government
who's going to say, hey, we're going to bring as much aid as is needed, and we're going to print as much money as is needed, and we're going to help individuals and companies and keep this and keep that and all these things. And it's just going to be an overflow of cash, that is not backed by anything. And inflation will be, like the Fed says, is what we're looking at an average over 8 to 10 years of 2%. That means that
that's so
wrong.
It's not even funny.
Well, that's like saying...
I mean, just look at... this is the problem with the inflation. It's like they don't look at hard assets. I mean, hard asset prices, homes, obviously the market, everything is going up insane amounts. Even metals, like copper, is up like 40%. I mean, that's the real inflation.
The thing, I think a lot of people don't understand that inflation is the worst hidden tax that you can have.
It is.
People understand taxes saying, okay, well, tax the rich, tax this, tax that, whatever, or corporate taxes, all that shit. And yeah, that's a number that you can put, saying, okay, well, the corporate taxes now are 21%. Fine, understood. Now the Democrats want to bring it back to 28%. I think they will probably settle at 25% to kind of be in between. Okay, they're going to increase that. You put a number there so you see it's more or less. Nobody understands inflation as a number. But what they need to see is that you say, okay, well, let's say that I bought a house 20 years ago that was worth that cost me $140,000. Okay, 20 years ago. With my salary 20 years ago, I could afford the house. It was a $1,000 mortgage a month, and with my salary and all that stuff, the mortgage was X percentage of my annual income. It was affordable, whatever. Okay, that house now is worth or is selling for $600,000. And so, oh, well, it's great because the house has appreciated, whatever. No.
I mean,
my buying power has decreased because right now, if you look at the average person and says, okay, could you buy your house today? And you say, no, because my house has appreciated. No, your house has appreciated, yeah, probably. But the other reason is that your salary, your buying power has depreciated.
I mean,
so right now you couldn't even afford to buy your house.
I was even looking at homes in Phoenix where we are, and it's actually crazy. In some areas of the city, like Tempe, certain areas of Scottsdale, other areas of Phoenix, I mean, homes that were literally $200,000 in Tempe in 2010 are $500,000 today. I mean, that's inflation. Obviously, part of that is that Phoenix is a hot city as far as people moving here in demand.
Right.
But Phoenix is also a city that doesn't have, it's the opposite of like San Francisco where they're so limited on building housing. In Phoenix, city is like, build as many fucking houses as you want. Doesn't matter. I mean, every day in Phoenix, there's a new like neighborhood being built. There's no limits. But man, I mean, just a typical house in Phoenix used to cost like $250,000, and now most homes in Phoenix, like a typical 2-bedroom or 2 or 3 bedroom house, nothing crazy, has gone from like $250,000 to like $450,000 plus. We'll be at typical home in Phoenix is going to be like $500,000 soon, and that's real inflation. And Phoenix, which used to be like one of the most affordable cities, it's still very affordable compared to other cities, but it's becoming less affordable, and that's a lot of that is inflation.
Because people's salary have not increased at the same pace.
Right.
That's exactly the point. If you could afford that house, like you said years ago, at $250,000, and you were paying $1,500 a month in mortgage, right now that $500,000 house is going to cost you $3,000 a month in mortgage. Okay, but you don't have that kind of salary for that. That's basically 50% of your salary. If you pay $3,000 in your mortgage, which basically no lender is going to approve. So even though mortgage rates are at an all-time low, approval rates are also at an all-time low, because bankers are becoming much more scrupulous of giving loans to customers that are stretching themselves.
The real estate investment market is so hot right now. I mean, the real estate investment market is crazy. I mean, how many people are getting into it is nuts right now because rates are so low. And so when you live when you are in a super inflationary environment, what is the best thing to do? Well, you don't want to have cash. You always need to have some cash, but you don't want to have a lot of cash, because that money is just literally just being destroyed in terms of its value.
Right.
You want to own hard assets. And so when you can get a hard asset that's appreciating 5-10% a year because of inflation, but the interest rate you're paying is 2%, I mean, that's a no fucking brainer. And that's why the real estate market is, in terms of investors, is exploding right now. And you combine that with so many people cannot afford to buy and are forced to rent, that the rental demand is massive. Like in Phoenix, I was looking the ratio of home owners versus home renters. The renters are the highest ever. It's like 45% renters now, when it used to be like 30.
Well, not only that.
So it's almost 50-50 now, homeowners to renters.
You see the listings for, like you said, for renting versus buying, or for sale versus for rent. And now you see a lot of houses that are for rent. For one, people that do not qualify to buy the house are just going to rent. Rent is safer. You pay by the month. You don't pay, you get evicted, whatever, so you're out. Mortgages are a whole different story, So, I mean, that going back to the actual market, there's such a disjoint, like if you look at our economy and you look at society in general.
But if you look, like, to put the numbers in perspective for people on the real estate, it's like the reason why it's so hot right now is because, say you get a property for $300,000, right? And your plan is, okay, I'm going to own it for 10 years, rent it out, and then in 10 years I'm going to sell it. It's like, okay, well, with the inflation where it is, that home that's $300,000 today is probably going to be, let's say, $500,000 10 years from now.
Right.
So you're already gaining $200,000 on the value. In the meantime, the rental income that you've been getting, let's say, you make whatever, I'm just making it up, 5% return cap rate. Let's be conservative here, right? So you get 5% on that, and then the home itself is worth $500,000, but you only paid $300,000 plus you paid whatever 20% down, so that would be $50,000 on that house, or $60,000. So you basically are putting $60,000 of actual cash up front. For a return of $200,000 plus whatever you make in the rental income. So you basically are probably getting like a 4 or 5x return over 10 years.
Right.
On a hard asset that's pretty stable. I mean, obviously there's always risk in the housing market. Don't ever think that there's not. But it's not the most volatile area. So the opportunity to get a 4 or 5x return, where the worst case scenario is maybe the house could go down 50% in value, that's why it's so hot right now. And that's why everybody's flooding into real estate. But of course, as more people flood in, asset prices keep going up. At some point, it's unsustainable.
And again, just to repeat what I said before, if you want to understand inflation, just think about anything that is a valuable asset. Let's just keep with the house example. That house that you bought 10, 15 years ago that you could afford with your whatever job salary you had, see if you could afford it at the current price today with your current salary and the current price or appraisal value of your house. If you can't, that means that inflation has taken a hit on your buying power, and that applies to everything. Obviously, we don't see it so much. I mean, maybe you go to a grocery store and before with $80 you were able to buy things for 3, 4, 5 days for a week, and now all of a sudden you're spending 120. Well, that is inflation too. It's a smaller amount.
The joke I saw someone make the other day is because the Fed released their inflation, and they basically said there's no inflation like for this last quarter. We've seen zero inflation, or like 0.1% or something.
Yeah.
And someone joked because they have their basically the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which is like this specific basket of goods that who fucking knows how they come up with it. And someone joked, there's no inflation on all the things that I don't buy, basically.
Right.
There's lots of inflation on all the stuff that I buy. I see inflation, but apparently on all the things I'm not buying, there's no inflation.
Well, it's like Europe just declared their inflation numbers, which were negative for the 9th quarter in a row or something. So they had deflation, which is even worse for companies because nobody will sell shit. But they're saying, okay, well, we have deflation, meaning, consumers should be happy because the prices haven't increased. And it's like, well, consumers are unemployed, they don't even have money to buy their shit, and now you're telling them that the prices are cheaper. No, they're not cheaper, because basically for their buying power, half of them are not working, half of them are on unemployment income, which is kind of furloughs and all these things, and they don't have the buying power. So it doesn't matter you tell them that inflation is minus 0.15% or something, because that doesn't help them, not to mention that printing more money is just not going to help either. So but I mean the disjointed thing that we have now, or situation that we have now with the market and the street is incredible. I mean, like I said, I mean the tipping point for me was yesterday when the market was up 600 points. I was watching it and I said, oh, okay, well, I guess people will like the full, Congress to be Democrat or whatever. They said before no. Now they said that before the market was going up because even though the Democrats won the election and all that stuff, the Senate could be still Republican, and it could be things would be even a little bit. It didn't seem like that was the reason, because the market was going up. Yesterday, once they started to see that the Democrats had won the election in Georgia and all that, and then when I saw the riots, I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be a major drop. I mean, it was the last 2 hours of trading, last 2 trading hours, and it was like, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to take a nosedive. No, it doesn't matter. It's like people are like, the investors are totally looking forward, saying, okay, well, the Capitol might be taken, the White House down, or whatever, like a movie. It's like, who the fuck cares? But not only that, after all the stuff that happened at the close of the market yesterday, they finally certified Biden at night. After everything settled at about 6 p.m. Eastern or whatever, they went back and they were able to vote and everything. They finally certified at night. And then the futures were up another 150. And today, market is, as of now, is up about, Dow is up 200 points, or almost 1%, and the S&P, which is even more indicative, is 1.5% up. It's like, do we have a total disconnect? I mean, it's like, we're keep buying stocks. Is the Fed just buying all that shit? How is the market going up so high?
You got to be Dr. Strangelove. I'm telling you.
Stop
worrying about the bomb and learn to love it, okay? And in this case, the bomb is the Fed.
And then we were talking Bitcoin earlier, kind of joking about the increase. I mean, crypto is being growing crazily over the last.
Crypto makes more sense to me.
Yeah, it does.
The market.
Now it does.
The market. I mean, again, when I say makes sense, it's probably not the right word.
It's more justified. Yeah,
it makes total sense to me why the market is going up. Because we have massive stimulus, that's what it is. It's just artificial pumping of the market. So it makes total sense to me, and it doesn't surprise me at all when I see the market keep going up. But now, is that long-term rational, and will there be long-term consequences? Yes, but in the short term, it makes sense. Again, I mean, there could be a fucking earthquake that destroys LA tomorrow, and I think that the market will still be up. Seriously, I don't think anything is taking this market down unless we go to fucking nuclear war. And even then, who knows? I mean, seriously, that's what I think. For 2021, I expect basically a mirror of last year. I bet you the S&P is up another 10-15% this year. Again. Now, beyond 2021, I just don't know how long you can keep it going. And I think at some point, the Fed runs out of bullets, so to speak.
Right.
But Yeah, I think 2021 is going to be another, again, not investment advice, it's just pure speculation. I think the Fed can keep this baby pumping for another year or so. But on the crypto, it makes much more sense to me because the crypto is essentially a hedge against what the Fed is doing. I mean,
yeah,
that's
but
what it is.
so would be gold, and gold is not growing at the same
But gold
pace
is
as,
up too, though.
Yeah,
No,
it's
gold,
been up, but not even close to what cryptocurrencies
yeah, but
like
also keep
Ethereum
in
or
mind,
Bitcoin have been.
gold's global market cap is 10 trillion. So to move gold takes a lot more.
Right.
And also, I do think that a lot of the demand that normally would be going to gold, because so many institutions don't have Bitcoin exposure and are basically saying we need to own Bitcoin. Right now, their number one priority is we need to own Bitcoin. So if that means not focusing on gold for the next 6 months, I think that's what they're going to do. I think gold, I mean, I think I'm like an alien weirdo in saying this because a lot of people think like are Bitcoin versus gold. I think both are going to go up a lot. I mean, I think we could see $3,000 gold. I think we're going to see six-figure Bitcoin. So I think we're going to see both.
All right, so let's continue with Bitcoin because there's been a couple of news. One of them you just shared with me about the Cash App, was it? About taking payments.
Oh, that's a startup.
Okay.
In Strike is what they're called, I think.
Okay.
By Jack Mallers. He's a young guy who's been working on basically Lightning Network solutions, which is a protocol on top of Bitcoin that does off-chain transactions. So the negative side effect, one of the things that people argue against Bitcoin is that as it gets bigger, that the cost of transactions and speed is just not there for it to be like a global payment system. And that is true. That's always been a weakness of Bitcoin's
Meaning
blockchain.
that you cannot use it for daily transactions.
Right, like buying a coffee does not make sense
right.
on the traditional Bitcoin blockchain.
Right.
It's expensive and it's slow, and just we couldn't run all the world's transactions through Bitcoin's blockchain. It just doesn't have the transactions per second.
Right.
So the solution is basically Lightning Network, which essentially is what's called off-chain, and how it works is for lower stakes. So if you're gonna, buy a house with Bitcoin, okay, for you, maybe that's worth doing it on the main chain, right? You don't want to do that off chain because, okay, maybe there's a fee, but hey, you know what? For my house, it's worth it. I'll pay the fee, right? Because it's a master transaction. The risk there is, the risk mitigation is worth it, essentially. You're paying the fee to reduce the risk. For a coffee where the risk is losing $5, okay, I'm okay with that risk, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And day-to-day transactions where the biggest risk is like losing small amounts of money, basically you can do it off-chain. Off-chain means it's not on the blockchain yet, so there is more risk,
on the public ledger type.
Right, and so the risk of off-chain is obviously that once something's on the public ledger, on the blockchain, so to speak, it's there forever. You can't change it. There's no going back. It's done. It's like set in stone, right? The off-chain, there's more vulnerability. But again, it's not that it's vulnerable, but it's not as basically impenetrable as on-chain.
But how do you reconcile the off-chain transactions?
Well, so what they do is you basically will have, so say you're Starbucks, right? What you do is you have a whole day's worth of transactions, right? And whatever, I don't know how many coffees Starbucks sells. Let's say they make $2,000 a day in coffees, whatever. And so they have all, or more. I have no idea. I'm just throwing a number out there. Probably $3,000. What is this? Like $1 million a year is probably a typical Starbucks store. I have no idea.
It's more, but
anyways, $3,000, $4,000, whatever, right? So they have $3,000 worth of coffees in the day. And then basically the risk is that, I bought this coffee and I could try to dispute that purchase and get it removed from that chain or whatever, right? It's like low stakes, basically. And then at the end of the day, they take all those transactions and put them into one essential single block, and then they put it on the blockchain. So then it's like a single $4,000 transaction for the day, and then that goes on the blockchain. And so that's how you do it.
Okay, so they lump them together.
They lump them together because you don't need, blockchain is great. Bitcoin's blockchain is great for basically
major
high risk or not necessarily high risk, but where you have a lot to lose. Again, if you're selling your house and you're like, you know what, I know it's going to cost me $1,000 fee to do this on the blockchain, but for my $500,000 home, I will take that.
So this startup that you
So
mentioned.
what this startup did that's interesting is they launched it, and they had a cool demo video. It's called In Strike. People can look it up. But they're creating like a global Venmo or Cash App, essentially, where you can send money any currency. Well, I don't know any currency, but many global currencies. So he did euro to dollars as an example. And basically how it works is I'm sending you $10, right? And I go and put in $10. And then it instantaneous. I mean, it literally works in like less than a second. It's so fast because Lightning Network is really fast. It takes my $10. It's if you want to get it in euros, it sends it to you in euros. But how it works, and it's in less than a second. It automatically converts. Everything's done. And how it uses Bitcoin as the settlement layer. So what it's doing is it's taking your $10, it's buying Bitcoin, and then it's with US dollars, and then it's immediately selling that Bitcoin back into euros, and then giving you that exact amount. And it does it instantaneously.
Wow.
And it's free.
So
there's no fee.
What does that require from the payment, the payer, and the recipient or the payee? I mean, it requires that both of us have the app.
Yeah, it's like having Cash App basically.
Right.
But it's basically it's a Cash App, but now the settlement layer is Bitcoin, and obviously you can send Bitcoin with it too.
Right.
And it's instantaneous. He basically built a global Cash App for Bitcoin.
So also, I'm assuming because you mentioned euros and dollars, that's like an international transactions too. Like basically, you make like a wire transfer for a small amount or whatever. Yeah. What's the limit? Is there limits?
I don't know what the limit is.
I'm assuming there are limits, but so I can send money, or you can send money to like a foreign transaction to a person in Europe in euros, and they just get it.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, it's smart. I mean,
it's, the fees.
It's a real actual like. One of my gripes with some of the
exchange type.
One of my gripes with some of the people in the Bitcoin community is that they don't make things user friendly, and they don't make things like the level of kind of savviness and intelligence needed is still decently high, and to have mass adoption you need to make things super simple and easy, and he basically made this. I mean, him and his team, and it's great. It's very simple, and it's smart. They're basically they made a version of Cash App, but it uses Bitcoin as a settlement layer, so you can send money anywhere in the world instantaneously for free.
No, I know this is new and it's not even launched yet, but I'm trying to figure out how this works. So obviously, because it uses Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is notoriously volatile right now. I mean, it could go up 5%, down %. When they made the transaction and they convert, let's say, dollars to Bitcoin and from Bitcoin back to euros, I mean, even as fast as it goes, they may be making or losing money.
Yeah, but I think part of how because it's free, they don't charge anything.
Right.
I think they make money on the float.
Okay.
That's their bet. They make money on the float.
So they don't charge customers for transaction fees or anything, which many people do.
Or currency conversion fees.
Conversion fees, nothing. They just make money with the actual
on the float. Yeah.
So that's like almost like a high frequency trading in forex or in
maybe
currency.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how that is launching now. So, yeah. I mean the Bitcoin. I mean, it's been like. I mean, we discussed this a few times already, but especially the last, I don't know, probably last month, Bitcoin has been growing like crazy. I mean, I remember specifically because I bought some Bitcoin before Christmas, and it's almost now up 60% in 3 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks. So now again, it could be a bubble, who knows, whatever. But there's a lot of institutions now that are believing in Bitcoin. And I think that is what is making Bitcoin much more appealing to a lot of people, not just the Bitcoin lovers that were before that brought it up and everybody was buying Bitcoin without even knowing what it was or how it worked. And then it totally took a hit and it totally crashed.
I think the run-up is going to keep going because right now it seems like every institution is saying, in the same way institutions realize, we need to have a diversified portfolio, and they want some gold exposure, bonds, different assets. It seems like almost every institution now is realizing, we need Bitcoin exposure.
Right.
And when these institutions are buying billions and billions of dollars of Bitcoin, and they're taking any opportunity that they can get, that's why the price keeps going up. And I think we're going to see it go way up.
But not only that. I mean, when you see big institutions on investment funds that are taking inventory of Bitcoin, basically, that means that the retail investor is going to believe more in it, saying, okay, well, if JP Morgan is or Citibank or whatever is buying this Bitcoin, I can buy it too. It's not so speculative anymore. It has a little more of a seal of approval, if you will. So, all right. So I wanted to switch quickly to social networks, specifically Facebook and other stuff. Obviously, there's one big news, which is obviously, again, as a result of everything that happened yesterday, they've been acting more into suppressing Trump's accounts and banning them or suspending them for 24 hours, 12 hours, and all that stuff. So I don't know if there's much more to say about that, because really,
now Facebook banned him until he's out of office.
Right. They basically banned. Zuckerberg said that he was suspended for 2 weeks or until he's out of office, which is basically the same thing. I mean, President Biden is sworn in on the 20th, so basically we're 2 weeks away. So, and then you know what? It's funny because I just read that Shopify has also banned
the store down.
All the stores that sell Trump merchandise or pro-Trump merchandise, even including the ones with his name, with all the hats, "Make America Great Again," all the stuff, all that stuff. They said we don't. That's against our policy now. We don't endorse any violence and all that stuff. So all that stuff is down. So he's taking a major hit. Socially, if that is the way to explain it, with Twitter, with YouTube, I didn't even know he had a Snapchat account, but apparently he did too. Obviously, he didn't man it himself, or didn't stuff it himself. But I mean, he's basically blacklisted with social media for a good reason, I guess. And then, but I wanted to get into the marketing side and advertising side of social media, because we've been getting all this in our marketing and digital marketing world. We've been getting all this announcement from Facebook as far as the new policy that Apple is implementing with their advertising policies. So, and you deal with that stuff pretty much on a daily basis. So, could you explain a little bit on somehow that we all understand what is the change that is happening now when we are looking at Facebook or Instagram and the ads that we used to see before, and if you're looking specifically through an iPhone or some kind of Apple device, how that's going to be affected?
Basically, people probably already have seen it, but with the new iOS update, iOS 14.2 or whatever one it is, Apple added a new notification or question, like when you download an app or start using an app, when it says like, what do you want to access your camera or whatever, things like that. They added a new one that, I forget the exact wording, but it basically says something like, do you want to allow Facebook, and this applies for different apps too, but do you want to allow Facebook or Instagram or whatever to track you on third-party apps and websites, basically? So when you're not using Facebook, do you want to allow them? So if you go on Facebook or Instagram and then you leave and you browse the web or you go to a different app, do you want to allow them to track your behavior there? And it says yes or no. Okay, well, obviously most people see that and they say, no, I don't want to be tracked everywhere. And so I don't know what percentage of people say yes versus no. If I had to guess, probably 90+% say basically, no, I don't want to be tracked. And so what that means is just Facebook and Instagram's targeting is not as good anymore. I mean, just very simply. Basically, one of the ways that Facebook's algorithm is so good is that it's not just tracking people's behavior within their apps, it tracks them across the web, what they're doing on other websites, on other apps, doing other things. And now it can't do that anymore on iOS devices, which anybody who runs ads knows that iOS devices, especially in the United States, are basically all the purchasers. I mean, like Android, it's not even close, you know?
Right.
Because basically iPhone users have more money. It's very simple. And So yeah, and then also as far as the retargeting and tracking goes, it hurts a lot of that too. And so basically what you're going to see is just a lot more broad audiences.
Is that already implemented?
It's already, yeah, it's
already in place.
Yeah.
Because I've seen, so like I downloaded the latest iOS, but I've seen sometimes that I need to check if that's the way it was. But like I've been searching things on, websites or whatever, and then obviously I see an ad on Instagram or something for something similar within the same range, if not exactly the product I was searching. And I was searching probably through Safari or whatever is the browser, the default browser for Apple. So I'm not sure because I didn't download. Is that only for the new apps that you download, or it's going to pop up something new?
It's going to pop up when you update.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just. Listen, I mean, Facebook's platform's still good, but it's just not going to be as good for iOS users now. It's just that simple. The targeting's going to be harder. So another change, they already did this before, but it's more widely implemented, which is they only have 1 day click now.
Yeah.
So
the conversion window.
If somebody clicks on an ad, before it was like typically 7 day click was like a standard. So if someone clicks on an ad and then buys 3 days later, you attribute it to that ad, right? Now it's 1 day click, which obviously for some products, if it's like more of a spontaneous purchase, may not affect you that much. But a lot of products, people don't just buy right on the spot.
Before it was, I think 1 week for a click through on 1 day for a view through.
Yeah, the standard used to be 1/7 basically. 1 day view through. So if someone sees your ad but doesn't click, but then goes on and buys, it'll attribute it
within the same day.
Yeah, and then 7 days for a click. So if someone actually clicks on your ad, and now it's 1 day click, which is just.
Can you change that manually? Is that default? Or
no, I mean you can still have 1 in 7 on Facebook, but for Apple, it's only going to be 1 day.
Oh, for Apple. Okay. Yeah. So even if you go to your Facebook business manager or ad manager.
You say 1/7.
1/7. When it comes to Apple, after 1 day, Apple says your cookie or whatever is gone.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's going to be tough because people don't usually buy things at the first try. I mean, there's multiple touch points that they call before people make the decision. So unless...
It's going to hurt a lot more the niche products. So products that people do lots of broad targeting, more wide, like interest-based groups targeting, that is probably going to be less affected. I've seen some numbers from different people and different accounts where they just basically said, all right, we're going to focus less on like our more narrow targeting and just open up and do broad audiences. And that seems to be working well still. Where it's going to hurt, but that obviously works if your product applies to a broad audience, right? If you're Starbucks, you probably aren't affected because everybody's your customer, or a huge amount of the population is your customer. But if you have a much more niche product where most people are not your customer, it's going to hurt you.
I mean, I think if I were an advertiser and I'm trying to target people, obviously with iOS and all that, with iPhones, iPads, whatever, I think you just have to flood the market with your ads, because if they have a one-click policy and then, or 1 day.
Yeah, but again, it depends what you sell. Right. So if you sell a mass market product where lots of people are your market, cool, okay, fine. But if you have a niche product where 99% of people are not going to buy your product, right? Especially, like, I think honestly this kills a lot of B2B on Facebook, right? Like if we were to run ads on Facebook, which we've done before, I probably wouldn't do it right now. I'd have to test more. But I think B2B, where that 99% of Facebook users who don't run a business and are not going to buy your services, it probably doesn't make sense for you to advertise on Facebook anymore.
Right.
But even for consumer products, right? If you have say you have like a specific, hunting gear product.
Right, but that's what
it's like if you advertising to a broad audience where the far majority of people aren't into hunting.
But you're going to have to have many more impressions to get that one click, because if my impression today...
Yeah, but Facebook charges based on impressions.
I understand, but they're going to have to charge...
This is what I'm saying. Like basically, Facebook is just going to be much more for the broad audience, mass market products. And if you have a niche product, I'm not saying that Facebook doesn't work, but it's going to be a lot more... you're going to have to be really smart with how you market.
I can see that shifting the campaigns more on Facebook towards the branding side more than the conversion side, because you can expose view-throughs or whatever. You can have a lot of views on your ads and then kind of do a lot more of brand awareness. The conversion side is going to be a little more tricky as far as tracking, because if they have a one-day click, I mean, people, maybe the 10th time they see your ad, they will say, oh yeah, I need to do this, and they click on it same day and then see if they buy or something. So yeah, that's definitely going to make a change.
But listen, you got to adapt. Things change. The thing I would recommend is if you have if you're more of a niche product and all of a sudden now your Facebook ads are performing worse, I would focus much more on niche influencers. So finding influencers in your niche and using them, because that still works great. I still think the far majority of influencers are very underpriced. In fact, at the micro level, with people with anywhere from 5 to 20,000 followers, especially in a niche, a lot of times you can just send them your product for free. Well, it doesn't even cost money. There's always opportunity. Like obviously, nobody likes to have a marketing channel that was working really well all of a sudden not work. But that's life.
We saw that before with Facebook when they changed on their own the organic reach, and they went from saying everybody that likes your channel or your page will see your stuff to saying
if you've been in internet marketing long enough, you know that get in while you can on any specific gold rush, because it probably won't last.
Yeah, and they basically even for product catalogs and things like that, they ban a lot of products because of whatever policies they have, and then when you advertise them and pay money, then all of a sudden they're not banned. So I mean, there's been a lot of things going on, but on the influencer side, I'm not so much into influencers, to be honest, as much as you are, but I guess it depends on the field. I mean, when you say influencers, in your experience, what fields or what categories are influencers better for? Like apparel, foods, nutrition, things like that. I mean, what kind of products are better for influencers?
Anything. It doesn't matter. I mean, influencer can be a person, or it can also be pages that are just focused on that. It can be communities that are it kind of is broad. It's just basically are there niche groups, so to speak, that kind of focus on where the audience is very much interested in your product. So it could be like like I said, if you sell a specific hunting gear thing, it could be an Instagram hunting page. It doesn't even have to be a person. It could be a person too. But things like that, they work, dude. When a lot of them, if you can get someone who has 15,000 followers and has good engagement, and all those people are obsessed with hunting, and all you have to do is send them the product for free, and they'll basically promote you. Mm-hmm. It's a steal. Yes. And even when it costs, I mean, I just think, I seriously think that the cost of influencers 3 years from now is going to be 5x what it is today, because I think it's still so underpriced.
Yes, but it's very hard to find for the average agency or the average person to find or to separate the good influencers from the fake influencers, the influencers that have basically become
it's not that hard. I mean, yes, it takes work, but everything takes work.
I know very reputable influencer agencies that also have had a hard time separating the true from the false.
Dude, the best way is look at the page.
Right.
I mean, look at the page. Do they have engagement? How many followers do they have? And how many likes are they getting per post? How many comments are they getting on the post? Are the comments actual comments, or are they like just emojis and shit?
Just a bot, yeah.
Click. I mean, one basic thing that I do all the time when I'm looking, I will literally, you can click to see who's liking the post.
See if it's an real person.
And you can see, and just click on 10 random profiles who liked it. Mm-hmm. And guess what? If they're real, they're real. And that's how you see it. Does it take a little manual work? Sure. But you know what? Hire a fucking intern for $10 an hour.
Right, you need to vet those people. Yeah, for sure.
Put in the work. Everybody's lazy. Nobody wants to put in the work.
Will you be, and this is more on the strategy side, but will you make your influencers like basically, do you just pay them for the service, whether it's being free merchandise or whatever, or even a fee, or will you think that they will be, or is better off to giving a percentage or a bonus or whatever for sales that they actually execute, for conversions? Like more of a paid for performance versus paid for branding or exposure.
It really depends on the influencer. Bigger influencers don't do that shit. They say, pay me. If you have a smaller influencer and you say, hey, I'll send you free product and then I'll give you an affiliate link, that may work. It's really a negotiation thing. But it also depends on, is it a one-time deal? Are you doing a package deal? Most of the time, the better approach is not to do like a one post or one story. It's to do a package, a set of deliverables over, say, like 2-3 months. And then basically say, okay, over the next 3 months, you're going to do 3 posts and 6 stories or whatever, something like that, and have a set of deliverables. Then you could do an affiliate link where they could tell people to swipe up. It really depends. I mean, this is all like, I mean, we can get into the minutiae, but
right. I'm just thinking
and
that
a lot of this is negotiation.
For my business side, I don't want an influencer to just say, okay, pay me X $1,000 and send me the product, and then I'll do the thing.
Yeah, but you negotiate.
Yeah, I know you negotiate, but still, when you pay the money up front and then you don't know what you're gonna get on the back end because it's very intangible. I mean, you buy a good, you say, okay, I'm gonna pay you this, you're gonna give me this. That's fine. But with the influencer, you're trusting them that they're going to influence their audience, whether it's true or not, a true audience, into buying this. And then before you know it, it's like, okay, well, I didn't get results. Oh, I'm sorry. They can just say your product wasn't that good, whatever, you know. Whereas you say, I'm going to give you this product and maybe a base, but then I'm going to pay you per performance, basically give you X percentage of every sale that comes from your sales with your code and your tracking link and all that stuff. Then we're fine because I don't feel like
I know, but the problem is a lot of people don't buy through those links. So the influencer loses out on that stuff. That's a challenge right now. I know there's actually companies trying to solve that, but right now the challenge is like a lot of people just don't buy through those links. So they might be influenced by that person and see it, but then they're not
they don't get the attribution.
Right. Again, it's all negotiation.
Right.
If the fee is fair, if it's a fair fee. You know?
Well, I mean, obviously they pay for if the influencer work well, you know, you're gonna hire them again. So obviously that incentivize for a good performance too.
Yeah.
So even if you pay them a fixed fee, you say, okay, well, this works, we'll do it next month and next month and next month. So
right, and too many people look at influencers as a quick thing. Don't look at influencers as a like. I wouldn't do influencer marketing as direct response, so to speak.
No, it's different. Yeah. Definitely.
I think that doesn't work as well. The best approach is to just basically do.
I mean, in reality, influencer marketing is another form of referral marketing that used to be before. Where
it's just
referral.
A version of, in the same way when you see like the old school commercials of like the cologne ads where they have, you know, George Clooney in a cologne ad, and it's not direct response. It's like George Clooney with some hot chick driving a car and he like smells good, and then it says buy Dior cologne. It's not really direct response, but it's just, oh, we have George Clooney promoting our cologne. It's just a micro version of that. And if you're gonna do influencer right, I would recommend doing many, like getting, especially if it's in a niche, like say 20 different influencers where a lot of the people who follow them are going to see it more than once across different influencers,
right,
and do a longer term, at least like 2-3 month deal. That's the right way to do it. Just doing one quick hits, it's not that it can't work, but it's just like throwing darts, you know. I mean, you have to be a little more focused.
One more question before we wrap it up, as far as the influencer marketing, which is a topic that we just brought up, but would that work better?
And I'll say one more thing. Invest in the relationships with people, because a lot of these people, you never know who has 20,000 followers today, but in 2 months is going to have 200,000. And if you were there with them in the beginning and you had treated them fairly and treated them well and have an ongoing relationship, then guess what? When they're 10 times bigger than they were today, especially these days with how people are blowing up on Instagram and TikTok, you never know who's going to blow up. And if just 1 out of the 10 people you work with fucking blows up and they're like an evangelist for your brand, that is so valuable. So treat the relationships seriously and treat them fairly, because you never know who's going to be the next big person.
That's obviously besides the point. I mean, I always think that you should treat everybody fairly.
Should be unsaid. It shouldn't need to be said, but too many people go in looking purely transactional, and that's fine. I mean, business is business, but you need to treat it with a real relationship.
You deal like a professional contract. I mean, whether you deal with the person fairly and then you expect the same fair treatment backwards towards you. So, I mean, that's usually, you know, what is expected. But so my question was going to be, in your opinion, does influencer marketing work better for startup companies that are little brand and need to be like a pre-launch, or for more established companies?
It works for everybody. Everybody.
So if you have you're a startup and you have always we have a limited budget and you need to split the pie into, okay, I'm going to do this Facebook campaign, traditional paid campaign, or maybe AdWords
Yeah, I mean,
or whatever.
listen, when you're small and you're just starting out and you have limited budget, test and whatever works best, go with that, right? I mean, so if Facebook ads work, like paid ads work great for you and you get a great return and you can build momentum there, do that. If you test with some influencers and you get a good response, do that. If you're in the beginning, if you have very limited budget, just test things and whatever works, pour fuel on the fire until you have more money. But yeah, it works for anybody. I don't care if your budget is $1 million a month or a few grand a month. It works for everybody.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that we'll just do it for this episode.
But the broader point is, just because Facebook and Instagram paid ads may be less effective now, there's so many opportunities for marketing. Don't put your head in the sand and say, "Oh, it's over."
No. I mean,
first of all, they still work well. It's just that you're gonna have to be more creative with how you do your targeting now.
Yeah, I know. And Facebook will definitely find a workaround and then do other kinds of. I mean, they'll Facebook revenue comes from ads. So if advertisers go somewhere else because Facebook is doing this or iOS or whatever, they're going to find some other way to generate those leads and that revenue for them. So it's just going to be more for marketers to kind of find, the way to adjust the ad placement and the exposures and the types of ads and everything to adjust to Facebook's, new policy or iOS or whatever. So I'm not so concerned. It's going to take some adapting, but I think advertising is always going to be effective for all platforms. I mean, Apple is, who knows? I mean, maybe even Apple gets some backlash and saying, hey, I don't want so much privacy. Let me make more decisions or, I mean, the privacy is fine. I
don't think that typical
consumer
consumer
but at the same time, I mean, you compare, for example, Apple Maps with Google Maps, okay? Apple Maps supposedly are more secure. They don't track you here, there, whatever. But sometimes Google Maps is much more convenient. They know where you are. They'll tell you are 5 minutes from work. There's traffic here. There's a voice camera there. The
argument for the tracking for ads,
right,
is that you're gonna have ads on the internet, okay, wherever you go. If you're on Facebook or Instagram or wherever, you're gonna have ads. Would you rather have ads that have nothing to do with you, that you're not interested in, or ads of products you actually like?
Right.
That's the argument for. Now, the argument against is, hey, I just don't want me to be tracked when I'm not using Facebook.
Honestly, when I go to Instagram and I just keep scrolling up and down stuff and I see some ads, usually are for things that obviously I've been interested in. Many times I actually click on them, go to their cost them money, by the way, go to the website, landing page, whatever, and open that and save it on Safari for later because I'm interested in the product and I continue. So I mean, it's not really such a big issue,
Yeah.
But
you can't be emotional about your marketing.
Right.
You got to be ruthless and cold-hearted and do what works. And the second something changes, you got to just compartmentalize. Say, okay, this is over. There's nothing any of us can do about the Facebook-Apple relationship. Okay.
Right.
So just move on.
It's just as long as it doesn't become like a little vendetta between Zuckerberg and Tim Cook, and they kind of make each other's life be difficult. And then at the end of the day, the consumer is saying, okay, well, guys, just peace out.
Yeah, but the consumer, that typical user has no idea. I mean,
right.
We know because we're in the ads business, but anybody who's not in the ads business has no idea any of the back end inner workings of these things.
Right.
So they don't understand. And that's fine. They don't need to. I wouldn't be interested in ad tracking if I wasn't in the business either.
Right. All right. Well, anything else that you'd like to add on this topic or anything else?
Nope. I think we're good.
All right. It's been great. Definitely not what we expected for the first 5 days of the or 6 days of the year, but I think everything will be fine. We'll be in better shape as we move forward. Notice that we've been talking for almost an hour and we haven't discussed any COVID things, even though it's not out of the news yet. But obviously there's other priorities right now. But I still remain optimistic. Remember last podcast we discussed when we think this pandemic thing is going to start going away and the masks and all that stuff. I still think that by the summer or so this year, we should be starting to see some more clarity and light at the end of the tunnel as far as putting this thing aside. And hopefully the vaccines, they'll figure out a way to spread the vaccination policy a little more, a little faster than what's been so far. So we have interesting weeks ahead and we'll be here every week as well. So for now, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching and we'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye-bye.